I'm Corbett Wall with DVAuction, here with your feeder flash for Monday, April the 22nd, brought to you in part by Kansas Regenerative Medicine Center. They're celebrating 10 years of healing at Kansas RMC, and they're one of the first and largest standalone stem cell treatment centers in the Midwest. About 60% of their patients are farmers and ranchers. For more information, go to kansasrmc.com. Also, Joplin Regional Stockyards expecting around 6,000 head for the regular feeder cattle sale here on Monday. They'll be starting at 7 o'clock a.m., which is a little bit late for them with a more moderate type run, but we're running low on cattle to sell, and even though we've been selling them to each other, putting a little bit of weight on them, we're starting to get more of them turned out or in feedlots, and they're not going to be coming back to the market. But don't forget, for you small producers, on Sunday afternoon they commingle cattle there at Joplin. It doesn't cost you any more, but if you'll bring them in on Sunday afternoon, then they can commingle your small groups and your singles with other like cattle from other producers. They put those together, make bigger bunches out of them. They sell at the high time there, about 11 o'clock in the morning on Mondays, and it's a good deal for everybody. They get the sale going quicker. You get to sell like you had bigger bunches, and the buyers like it too. So it's just a good thing for smaller producers there if you want to market through Joplin Regional Stockyards. But much lighter placements and marketings that we found on the Cattle on Feed report that came out on Friday. That was kind of what they expected, but it was more so than they expected. We were expecting lighter placements from a year ago and lighter marketings, but it was a lot less on both than what we thought, especially placements. So I would have to say that it's a little bit bullish, not a bunch, but we were kind of bracing for a bad one. So I think people came away from your Cattle on Feed report feeling pretty good. Your inventories come out at 101.5 compared to the guess, which was 102. So that's always a positive thing, and we were just feeling pretty good about things late Friday and over the weekend. And people in pretty good moods. I was out in Fallon, Nevada at Nevada Livestock Marketing helping sell one of the last big specials they'll have. They've about cleaned all the cattle up out there too for their monthly feeder cattle specials. But I tell you what, about everybody in the sale arena was bidding on cattle, especially the heifers. They sold really well. A lot of buyers from California in there, and a lot of bidding going on over the internet. And so it was pretty active there at Nevada Livestock Marketing on Friday. But you know, the week last week was just kind of a quiet week of recovery. We kind of got that bird flu deal behind us. There's still kind of some rumblings about it, but it's mostly just in the dairy industry, and it's not bleeding over into your cattle. And I think your funds kind of used all that they could out of that to try to break the board back, and we regained some market position, especially on the board. But it wasn't wild gains. It was just kind of strong, steady gains. Your feeder cattle, especially for most of the week, was higher. Of course, live cattle were too, but we saw some big gains on your out front feeder contracts. So if you guys are looking to hedge your cattle or get a LRP on them, go out there and look at some of those far out feeder contracts on your CME. They look a lot better than they did a couple of weeks ago whenever we were in all that kind of hectic fallout from the bird flu and all that. But you know, the Cattle on Feed report, like I mentioned earlier, I told you that your inventories for April 1st are 101.5% of a year ago. It's hard to believe we just keep having more and more cattle than a year ago on feed when we know that we've got way fewer cattle out there. But indeed, that's the deal. You know, of course, that 101.5 that actually came through on Friday was compared to the average guess, which was 102, so that was slightly bullish. Your placements were much lighter than what they thought. They were expecting 92.1% of a year ago, and it was only 87.7. That is a lot. When you start getting more than 10% from a year ago's report, that is a lot. And so that was very, very bullish there. But marketings were not. I mean, we know that these packers have really slowed these change speeds down, and they take any opportunity to cut hours, or maybe even go 4 days or even 3 days a week, and it shows up on these reports. So they were expecting 88.2% marketings of a year ago, and it was only 86.3. So that is bad. Of course, it was, we had a less days, or one less day of business there to do. So, but like I said, your packers were taking a lot of time off there, and taking opportunities to cut hours and things like that. So they don't want to have to pay up for these cattle, and if they don't have cattle there to kill, they've got to cut the hours a little bit. But your placements were lighter on anything less than 900 pounds. Your placements weighing over 9 to 1,000 and over 1,000 pounds were about the same as what they were a year ago, but your lighter placements were a lot lighter. Your March marketings were oddly below February even. So your February is a short month always. Of course, we had leap year this year, so they had a little bit more business done in February than March. February is a lot further away from grilling demand than March is, so we never see fewer marketings in March than you do in February, but we did this year. And producers also showed that they might be showing the first signs of heifer retention. We still had more heifers on feed than a year ago, but the gain was not as big as the steers. So maybe just barely starting to see some retention of heifers. Of course, that'll last for probably 2 or 3 years here. But I did hear a scary rumor late on Sunday that we may have a problem in a major cow plant in the Midwest. And so not sure if they're going to be up and running on Monday, but there's not enough cows to go around already. And these slaughter cow plants have been slaughtering some odd fats and different things to try to kill kill time and also have some more product on hand. But anytime we have serious problems in one of our beef plants, that's not good. So look to the news here on Monday morning when it starts to come out, and we'll see whether there was any truth to those rumors or not. But let's talk about your board for last week. April live cattle futures. Monday was up $1.40. Tuesday was up $1.20. That's a good start to the week. Wednesday down just 60 cents. Thursday up 27. And Friday up 30 cents, with April live cattle futures ending the week at 181.47. That was up 257 for the week. June was up $4.20 for the week. Still struggling back there at 175.67. April feeder cattle contracts. Monday was up $1.95 and Tuesday up 80 cents. Again, good gains there. Wednesday was up another 7. Thursday up $1.17. Then Friday off 27. Kind of getting ready for that cattle and feed report, which turned out to be pretty friendly, I think. April feeder cattle ended the week at 241.32. That was up 372 for the week. And keeping up with where our index is, our cash indexes are pretty close to that, which we're well and deep into the spot month there. May feeder cattle ended the week up 780. Like I said, these out fronts had a lot more gains in them, all the way up to 242. But May corn futures 433.5 at the end of the week, which was down 2 cents. Soybeans for May ended the week at 1150.5, down 23.5 cents a bushel. And Kansas City hard red winter wheat ended the week at 581.5, down 8.25 cents a bushel for the week. Fat cattle trade up through Thursday of last week. We had only sold 2,600 cattle in your 5-area feeding region. All those feedlots, nobody's selling anything negotiated hardly. Only 2,600. Of course, your packers had a couple of weeks of getting the market kind of back under control, under their control with their leverage, and they just would not pay up for the cattle, and they ended up getting most of the cattle bought steady to lower, but just a buck lower. We weren't gaining or losing it in bunches like we had been the couple of weeks prior there. But like I said, up through Thursday, only 2,600 cattle, and they ranged from 182 to 185, and it was mostly mixed lots of steers and heifers, off-grade cattle, things like that. Your weighted average was real close to 183 live and about 293.75 dressed. That was up to Thursday. But then we went ahead and traded cattle on Friday. Packers did not come with any more money. Feeders just decided to stay current and go ahead and take the dollar less bids that they were getting. On Friday, Iowa sold 3,900. Live sales from 181 to 184, mostly 183 to 184, which would be a buck lower. Dress sales at 292, that would also be a buck lower. Nebraska sold 17,400 on Friday, 182 to 184, and 292 to 293 dressed. Kansas sold over 10,000 head on Friday, 180 to 183, but mostly 182. And that would be steady with the previous week there, and they did have a few 292 dress sales there. Texas sold 7,500, which is pretty decent for them, all on Friday, 181 to mostly 182. On the Fed Cattle Exchange online bidding, they did sell some bid the grid cattle at 183, and they also sold some just straight up cash cattle at 182 on Friday there. Your box beef cutout values were lower for the week. Choice cuts, your weighted average on all of last week's sales choice was 283, lower than the previous week's weighted average at 297.44, and your late Friday sales were about $2 lower than that. Select weighted average on all of last week's sales was 639 lower, so now we've got a choice select spread again at 290.99. And your late Friday sales were about the same as that, about steady with that. But choice select spread on the weighted average was $6.45. All of that on 593 loads of cuts, grinds, and trimmings. Your slaughter was surprisingly strong. We weren't expecting 20,000 on Saturday. And so we ended up with a 620,000 head week, which is pretty decent when we know your packers have been dialing it back really hard. But that was probably as bullish as anything, and that come out on Friday. More people talking about your surprisingly large slaughter than they were the cattle on feed report for the most part. But 620,000 for the week last week was 17,000 more than the previous week and just 5,000 less than the same week a year ago. Talk about your feeder cattle market. Your real-time index on DVAuction ended the week at 242.87, was actually 63 cents lower for the week. Your latest CME cash feeder cattle index was 241.73. It was quite a bit lower. But your real-time index being 63 cents lower on a 7-day moving average of all those cattle, 800-pound average up through middle 12 states, that's fairly steady. And that's what we saw in the sale barns last week, is your cash feeders, the weights going right into the feedlot, they were mostly steady. Not a lot of change in them. Now still we're seeing your stockers really strong, even though most of the cattle in your major grazing areas have been turned out now. We've seen the northern plains come in and get really strong. And so we saw guys up in the mountain states and up Montana, Wyoming, Nebraska, getting really aggressive on stocker weights and buying cattle weighing well into the 7s to turn out on grass. Nobody's scared of one coming off grass weighing over 1,000 anymore. In fact, they want them that way. But your stockers, I mean your hard-wintered cattle and your calf weight yearlings, those really hard stockers, long time weaned, they were $5 to $8 higher in most of your sales last week. while new crop calves, the soft calves, especially those that are balling, as the temperatures are starting to heat up, you don't want that. They were $3 to $5 lower. Give you some individual quotes from around late last week and over the weekend. How about Wahoo livestock sales in Wahoo, Nebraska? 65 steers weighed 886 at 255. Wow, that's impressive. How about Tato Medina there down at Santa Teresa, New Mexico, at Santa Teresa Livestock Auction? They had almost 2,100 head there. That's more than they have capacity for, and they've been doing that several times this spring. He's really got that sale barn rolling. Selling Mexican cattle. They've already jumped through all the hoops. All you have to do is buy them, and you can take them with you. You can find that on DVAuction every Friday. But on Friday this past, they sold 67 steers, weighed 446 at 327. Thought that was pretty impressive. But the most impressive quote that I saw late last week or over the weekend came from my friends Rich and Alicia Robertson there at Crawford Livestock Market in Crawford, Nebraska. They had a good sale, including 3 loads, which were out of a 6-load consignment, but 3 loads of 965-pound steers bring $240, $250. And that's your feeder flash for Monday.